The CEO fired the single dad for being late, then saw what he was doing after hours. The glass tower of Orion Defense Systems stood above the city like a sharp blade pointing at the sky. From its highest floor, the CEO could see the space elevators rising into the clouds and the bright line of orbital stations shining far above Earth. He believed that order kept those stations safe. He believed that discipline kept humanity alive. His name was Victor Hale. He built his company from almost nothing. He trusted numbers, reports, and strict rules. If someone failed to follow the rules, they did not belong in his building. On a cold Monday morning, the security alert flashed red on his desk screen. An employee had arrived late again. It was the 5th time this month. The employee's name was Daniel Reed. Daniel worked in maintenance engineering. He repaired shield relays and checked power cores at the lower levels of the tower. He was skilled with machines. Even senior engineers admitted he could fix problems others could not. But skill did not excuse lateness. Victor watched the live security feed. Daniel hurried through the lobby doors, where his clothes were clean but worn. His eyes looked tired. He carried a metal tool case in one hand and a small paper bag in the other. He stopped for a moment near the wall screen, as if catching his breath, then rushed toward the elevators. Victor tapped his desk. The board members were visiting today. Investors from the Lunar Council were inside the building. This was not the day for weakness. He pressed a button and called Human Resources. "Bring Daniel Reed to Conference Room 7, Victor said. Minutes later, Daniel stood inside the bright conference room. The glass walls showed the city below. 3 board members sat at the long table. Victor stood at the head. Daniel placed his tool case on the floor. He did not sit. Victor did not smile. "You were late again." Daniel nodded once. "Yes, sir." 5 times in 1 month, Victor continued. "Our company protects orbital cities. We cannot afford careless behavior." Daniel's voice was calm but soft. "It will not happen again." Victor looked at the report on his tablet. "You said that last time." And the time before that. There was silence in the room. Quote, the board members watched closely. Daniel looked down for a second, then raised his eyes. "I understand." Victor made his decision quickly. "You are terminated. Effective immediately. Security will collect your access card." The words felt clean and simple. Order restored. Daniel did not argue. He did not beg. He only picked up his tool case. For a moment it looked like he wanted to say something, but he stayed silent. "You may leave," Victor said. Daniel nodded again and walked out of the room. One board member leaned back in his chair. "Strong leadership," he said. "No room for weakness." Victor felt satisfied. That was how a company survived in a dangerous galaxy. The day moved on. Presentations were given. Charts were shown. Investors nodded with approval. The Defense Shield upgrade project was praised. By evening, the building slowly emptied. Workers left in groups, talking about dinner plans and shuttle schedules. Victor remained in his office long after sunset. He preferred quiet hours. The city lights below looked like stars turned upside down. He opened the energy usage dashboard for the building. It was a habit of his to review small details. Small details revealed big problems. One section caught his eye. Hangar 3 was drawing power. Victor frowned. Hangar 3 was a restricted research bay in the lower levels. It was used for prototype drone testing. No tests were scheduled tonight. He zoomed in on the data. The power draw was not high enough for heavy equipment, but it was steady. It had been happening almost every night for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Victor checked the access logs. An old maintenance override code appeared again and again. The code belonged to Daniel Reed. Victor's jaw tightened. The access should have been removed the moment Daniel was fired. Yet the log showed entries from previous nights, long before today. He opened the security footage from the past week. The camera showed the side corridor near Hangar 3. Late at night, when most lights were dim, Daniel appeared on screen. He wore simple work clothes. He carried boxes filled with spare parts. He moved quietly, looking around before unlocking the hangar door. Victor watched several nights of recordings. Daniel entered alone each time. He stayed for hours. Near sunrise, he left through the same side door. Victor leaned back in his chair. Why would a maintenance engineer enter a research hangar after hours? Theft? Sabotage? He played the most recent footage from last night. Inside the hangar, Daniel worked under a bright hanging lamp. The large testing space was mostly empty, except for crates and unused metal frames. In the center stood something unexpected. It was a small spacecraft frame. Not one of the company's official designs. It looked handmade. Panels from old drones were attached to a narrow body. Wiring ran across the surface in careful lines. A cockpit seat was fixed inside a simple glass canopy. Victor felt confusion replace anger. Daniel moved around the craft with focus and care. He soldered circuits. He adjusted a small engine core. His movements were skilled, not random. Then Daniel stopped working and wiped his hands. He pulled a small communicator from his pocket and activated it. A holographic image appeared above the device. It showed a young girl, maybe 8 years old. She sat in a simple room with dim lighting. Medical tubes ran behind her bed. Victor increased the audio. "Did you eat dinner?" Daniel asked gently. The girl smiled weakly. "Yes, Papa. Auntie made soup." "Good," he said. "You must stay strong." She looked at the ship behind him. "Is it almost ready?" Daniel glanced back at the craft. "Soon. I just need a little more time." "The doctor said the station is far," she whispered. "I know," Daniel replied. "But this ship will get us there." Victor's hands froze above his desk. "Station?" The girl coughed lightly. "The other kids at the clinic said no one goes that far." Daniel's voice grew firm. "We will, I promise you." The hologram flickered as the signal weakened. "I believe you," the girl said before the image faded. Daniel stood in silence for a moment, then he returned to work. Victor ended the recording. He opened medical databases. A rare condition appeared in public records: radiation lung syndrome. It affected children exposed to unstable reactor leaks in older districts of the city. Treatment was limited on Earth. Advanced therapy existed only on a deep space medical station near the outer colonies. Travel costs were extremely high. Victor closed the file slowly. Daniel had been late because he was working here at night. But why not request help? Why not speak to management? Victor answered his own question. Pride or fear? He looked again at the energy logs. The power use from Hangar 3 was minimal. Daniel had been careful. Still, entering a restricted area without permission was serious. Company rules were clear. Victor stood up and walked to the large window. The stars above the city shimmered. Humanity had enemies in deep space. Discipline kept them safe. Yet the image of the small girl remained in his mind. He returned to his desk and checked one more thing. Earlier that day, just hours after being fired, Daniel's access code had been used again. Tonight, Victor checked the live feed. The corridor camera showed Daniel walking toward Hangar 3 once more. He must have known his access would soon be removed. He was moving quickly. Victor felt a strange pull of curiosity. He could call security and have Daniel arrested for trespassing. Instead, he picked up his coat. The lower levels of the tower were quiet and cold. A hum of distant generators echoed through metal walls. Victor walked alone down the corridor. He rarely visited these sections. This was the world of engineers and technicians, not executives. He stopped before the heavy door of Hangar 3. Light shone from the bottom edge. He entered quietly. Daniel stood on a ladder beside the small spacecraft. He was installing a navigation panel. Tools were spread neatly on a cloth below. Daniel heard the door slide open and turned around. For a brief second, surprise crossed his face. Then it faded. "Sir," he said calmly. Victor looked at the ship. Up close, it was even more impressive. The design was compact but strong. It was built for long-distance travel with minimal fuel. "You no longer work here," Victor said. "I know," Daniel replied. "Yet you returned." "Yes." Victor walked slowly around the craft. "You built this from scrap materials, from parts that were marked for disposal," Daniel said. "Nothing stolen." Victor stopped in front of him. "You used company space and power." Daniel did not deny it. Only what was needed. Silence filled the hangar. Victor studied the man before him. The tired eyes, the steady hands, not the face of a criminal. "Why did you not tell anyone?" Victor asked. Daniel hesitated for the first time. "Because I was hired to fix machines, not to ask for favors." "This is not a small favor," Victor said. "I know," Daniel answered quietly. "That is why I planned to leave once it was finished." Victor felt something shift inside him, though he could not name it. Before he could speak again, a loud alarm echoed through the hangar. Red emergency lights flashed across the walls. Victor's wrist screen activated automatically. Unknown object detected in high orbit. Defense grid malfunction. Energy spikes across shield network. Victor looked at Daniel. Daniel looked back at him. The night had just changed, and neither of them knew that this moment would decide more than one man's job. Far above Earth, something moved in silence, watching. Victor stood in Hangar 3 as alarms continued to flash. Daniel did not panic. He moved quickly to check the small spacecraft systems. Every panel was labeled and organized. The tools were arranged in a line. He seemed calm, focused. Victor could not take his eyes off the small ship. It was built with care. The engine core, though tiny, had energy conduits neatly soldered. Panels were reinforced with recycled metal. Even the wiring followed strict paths. He realized this was not a reckless project. This was brilliant work. "What are you building this for?" Victor asked. Daniel did not stop his work. "For her."
"She needs this." Victor frowned.
"Oh, my daughter. She is sick."
"Only a medical station far from here can help her. It is too expensive to reach. I am building a ship to take her there myself." Victor felt his heart skip. The city had many dangers: radiation, storms, orbital debris. Even a small ship required skill to fly. Yet the man who was fired days ago had built one by himself. "You could have told someone," Victor said. "You would not have been alone." Daniel shook his head. "If I ask, they will deny me. They will tell me to wait or follow rules. I cannot wait. Time is short." Victor looked at the screen showing the shield network. The alarms were real. Some energy nodes in Earth's orbital defense grid were fluctuating. The unknown object in orbit had not attacked, yet the shield was reacting badly, strange pulses spreading in unexpected ways. "This is serious," Victor said. "The shield could overload. If it fails, the city could be destroyed." Daniel glanced at the panels. I noticed flaws weeks ago. I reported them, but no one listened. Victor felt a mixture of anger and guilt. He had fired this man for being late, ignoring the work he had been doing at night. I see it now, Victor said quietly. Your lateness was not laziness. Daniel nodded. I could not risk a child's life. I stayed here at night to build something. I had to prove the shield's weakness before it failed. Victor walked around the ship. He examined the core. Even a small error could be catastrophic, yet Daniel had avoided it. Every wire, every panel, every circuit was in the right place. The small ship looked like it could fly tomorrow. Outside the hangar, the alarms continued. Victor checked the external cameras. The unknown object was moving slowly in orbit, studying Earth's defense satellites. It did not fire, but its presence disrupted communications. You think it is intelligent? Victor asked. Daniel nodded. It is observing. It may not attack if it tests us first. Victor felt a cold chill. The unknown object was watching humanity. The shield was already failing. Earth could not rely on governments or the military alone. What are you going to do? Victor asked. Daniel looked at the ship. I will fix the shield manually. The override requires someone to fly to the core. It is dangerous, but it is possible. Victor realized the truth. This man he fired was not only brilliant but brave. He would risk his life to save millions. I cannot allow you to do this alone, Victor said. You need a team. Too late for that. I need to act now. Hours count more than rules. Victor hesitated. He could call security, force Daniel to stop, but looking at the small ship, he knew that would be a mistake. Then I will watch and assist from here, Victor said. If anything goes wrong, I can help you remotely. Daniel smiled briefly. Thank you. The two worked silently. Victor monitored the external systems, noting each fluctuation in the shield network. Daniel continued wiring and testing panels. Sparks flew briefly, but each adjustment corrected the core's instability. Hours passed. The city outside the tower lights flickered as night deepened. In the hangar, the small ship began to hum faintly. Energy flowed through the circuits. Daniel checked the communication link. His daughter's hologram appeared. Almost ready, Papa? She asked. Almost, he replied. I need to test one more system. Then we can leave. Victor watched, impressed. This was no ordinary engineer. This was a father who built hope with his own hands. Suddenly, the alarms grew louder. The unknown object pulsed, scanning the shield. Energy nodes blinked red. The shield surged and stuttered. If it failed, orbital stations would be at risk. Daniel worked faster, fingers moving over circuits, adjusting conduits and stabilizers. Victor followed his instructions remotely, tapping controls from his portable console. The override is ready, Daniel said. Victor nodded. Then it is time. The two looked at the small ship. Daniel climbed into the cockpit. The hum of the engines grew louder. The lights on the panels glowed green. All systems were nominal. He strapped in, testing the controls. Victor felt a strange mix of fear and admiration. He had fired this man for being late, yet now he saw the courage behind every late morning. Daniel spoke into the communicator. I will be careful. Stay with me through the link. Victor activated the live monitoring feed. I am watching. Good luck. Outside the hangar, the night was still. The city slept unaware. But above, the unknown object continued to study Earth. The shield wavered, reacting to invisible pulses. The moment had arrived. Humanity's fate might depend on one man and his small ship. Daniel started the engine slowly. The hum turned into a low roar. Sparks from the floor indicated the energy draw. He pushed the small craft forward, gliding over the hangar floor. Sensors confirmed stable navigation. Victor adjusted the lighting and communications to give full visibility. The small ship rose above the hangar. Daniel moved carefully, avoiding structural supports. Outside the windows, the city lights blurred as he gained altitude. The roof opened automatically, allowing the ship to exit into the night sky. Victor followed from below. The sensors showed the ship in orbit, approaching the damaged shield nodes. The unknown object appeared as a dark shadow far away, following but not attacking. Daniel spoke softly into the communicator. "I see the pulse nodes. I can reach them." Victor held his breath. "Proceed carefully. The smallest mistake could trigger a collapse." Daniel nodded. His hands worked the controls like a conductor with an orchestra. Panels flashed with status updates. The energy grid stabilized slightly. One node flickered red, then green. The override device activated. Sparks ran through the circuits, but contained the surge. Victor could not help but feel awe. A man he had dismissed for being late was now preventing a disaster that could destroy cities. For a moment, the unknown object paused. It scanned the ship and the shield. Then it pulsed, almost as if approving the action. Victor realized that the alien presence had been testing humanity's ability to act, and this man had passed the test. Daniel transmitted the last status: override complete. Shield stable. We are safe. Victor exhaled slowly. You have done the impossible. Daniel smiled, exhaustion clear on his face. We have done it, together. Victor realized that leadership was not about firing or rules. It was about understanding, trust, and courage. And now, a lesson learned too late could change everything about the way he would lead in the future. Above, the unknown object lingered for a moment, then moved away into the darkness. Earth was safe, but Victor knew the galaxy still held challenges. And he knew the night would never be forgotten. The night when one man's courage saved millions. The next morning, the city looked peaceful from the top floors of Orion Defense Systems. Morning light reflected off orbital elevators, and distant shuttles moved like slow fireflies against the blue sky. But inside the company, Victor Hale could not rest. He watched the SHIELD network reports, and everything was stable, for now. Daniel Reed returned to the building, this time officially reinstated by Victor's order. The board had argued against it, calling it risky and unprofessional, but Victor had insisted. He understood now. Daniel's knowledge and courage had just saved the city. Daniel moved to Hangar 3, checking the small spacecraft he had built. It had been repaired, recharged, and recalibrated after last night's flight. Even though it had completed the initial override, the ship needed to be ready for emergencies. Daniel was meticulous. His eyes scanned each panel, each wire, each engine connector. One mistake could mean failure next time. Victor followed him. He walked slowly, still in awe of what Daniel had accomplished. This man, a single father fired for being late, had built a craft capable of traveling beyond Earth orbit and stabilizing a defense grid no one else understood. Victor realized that leadership was more than enforcing rules. It was about seeing people's strength and courage. Daniel checked the communication link. His daughter's hologram flickered into view. "Papa, did it work?" she asked. "Yes," Daniel said, smiling. "The shield is safe. You are safe." She nodded and then whispered, "Are you coming home soon?" Daniel hesitated. The journey to the medical station for her treatment was still necessary. He had stabilized the shield, but that was only the beginning. Victor cleared his throat. "Daniel, we need to prepare for the next step. The shield is stable, But the unknown object is still out there. It may return. Daniel nodded. I know. We cannot ignore it. I need to understand it, and I may need to act fast if it comes closer. Victor studied him. He had seen courage before, but this was different. It was a calculated bravery, not reckless. Daniel risked himself not for glory, but for love, for his child. Victor felt a new respect, almost admiration. Meanwhile, the company's analysts scrambled. The unknown object in orbit had disrupted communications and shield nodes in a pattern that no human engineer could fully understand. Multiple simulations were run to predict its behavior. Victor demanded results, but the analysts admitted the object's movements were unpredictable. We may be facing something intelligent, one analyst said. It is testing our response, learning from our actions. Victor leaned back in his chair. He had feared this day for years. Humanity's reach in space was limited, and Earth had enemies capable of observing every mistake. But now, thanks to Daniel, the city was safe. And he had learned an important lesson. Intelligence and care often surpassed rules and titles. Back in Hangar 3, Daniel prepared the small ship for another simulation. He connected a control interface, feeding real-time shield data into the onboard systems. He adjusted circuits, optimizing responses to energy surges and radiation spikes. His focus was unwavering, his movements precise. Victor watched from a nearby console. You think the ship can handle the shield if the object returns? Daniel paused. It should, but I cannot predict its behavior completely. If it comes too close, I may have to guide the system manually. Victor understood. The father was ready to act, ready to face unknown dangers for the safety of millions. His own role as a CEO suddenly seemed secondary. The real hero was Daniel. Hours passed. Daniel ran multiple tests, each time improving system responses. The ship hummed with energy, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Even the board members, initially skeptical, began to watch quietly, realizing the magnitude of what Daniel had built. Victor spoke softly. You have done more than your job. You have changed everything about how I view responsibility. Daniel smiled faintly. I only did what I had to do. There was no other choice. Suddenly, the shield sensors picked up movement. The unknown object had shifted closer. Its pulses were stronger, scanning different energy frequencies. Analysts shouted instructions. Victor directed everyone to remain calm. Daniel checked his instruments. It is testing us again. We need to respond quickly. Victor nodded. Do whatever is necessary. The small ship's engines powered up. It lifted slightly, floating above the hangar floor. Daniel guided it remotely through test simulations, manually activating override sequences. Every node responded as predicted, but the unknown object pulsed in unexpected ways, challenging the system. Victor watched with bated breath. Each pulse from the object sent energy surges across the shield, but Daniel's ship absorbed and redirected them with perfect precision. The engineers and board members could only watch, realizing that one man's focus and love were holding the shield steady. Hours turned into a tense afternoon. The unknown object hovered, observing, probing. It did not attack, but it tested the limits of Earth's defense. Daniel anticipated every fluctuation, adjusting circuits, recalibrating sensors. Sweat formed on his brow, yet he did not pause. Victor felt a mix of fear and pride. The man he had dismissed for being late was now proving the most capable human in the building. His understanding of the shield was unmatched, his courage unshakable. Finally, the object pulsed once more and moved away. Withdrawing from the immediate orbit, the shield remained intact. The crisis was over for now. Daniel powered down the small ship. He removed his helmet and sat back, exhausted. Victor approached him, feeling humility and respect. You saved the city again, and you did it with no one's support but your own. Daniel shook his head. I had to do it. There was no one else who could. Victor nodded. I see that now. You are more than an employee. You are a leader, a protector, and a father. And I misjudged you. Daniel smiled faintly, the first relaxed smile of the day. Thank you. That means something. Victor looked around the hangar. The small ship, the tools, the careful planning, it was more than a machine. It was hope, determination, and love embodied in metal and circuits. He realized that true strength was not measured by titles or punctuality, but by courage, sacrifice, and care. Outside, the city continued, unaware of the dangers it had narrowly avoided, and above Earth, the unknown object disappeared into the darkness, leaving a silent message. Humanity had passed its first test, but the galaxy still held challenges. Victor and Daniel knew that future nights would test them again. And when they came, they would need courage, intelligence, and the bond between father and child to survive. The days following the shield stabilization were tense. Victor Hale returned to his office, pacing slowly. The unknown object had retreated, but its presence lingered in the sensors. Earth's defense grid was intact, but humanity had been tested. Victor realized that survival in space demanded more than numbers and rules. It demanded courage, foresight, and trust in people who acted for reasons beyond titles. Daniel Reed continued preparing the small spacecraft. He examined every panel, tested engines, and ran simulations of orbital maneuvers. The ship had to be ready for emergencies, but Daniel's mind was also focused on another mission, the trip to the distant medical station for his daughter. The earlier crisis had shown him how fragile systems could be, and he wanted to be ready for anything. Victor stayed close, monitoring communications and shield status. The board members argued about risk, insisting that Daniel's solo flights were reckless. But Victor had seen the man in action. He knew that Daniel's skills were unmatched and his judgment precise. If Earth's defenses needed someone capable, Daniel was the one. One afternoon, the sensors indicated unusual activity in the upper atmosphere. A probe, small and fast, moved near the orbital network. Analysts speculated it could be connected to the unknown object, perhaps testing Earth's response once more. Victor directed them to monitor carefully. He did not want panic, only observation. Daniel worked inside the hangar adjusting the spacecraft's engines. The prototype ship had a unique design. Compact but strong, it used recycled drone parts and carefully soldered circuits. Daniel's hands moved with precision, his mind calculating every trajectory and energy flow. He adjusted the navigation interface to allow quick manual control, knowing that automation might fail under unexpected conditions. Victor watched from a console, impressed. You've thought of everything, he said. Daniel looked up briefly. I have to. There's no room for mistakes. Lives depend on this. Hours passed. The city outside glimmered in the sunlight. Orbital stations hummed with activity. Victor and Daniel ran simulations together, analyzing potential energy surges from the unknown object. Each test confirmed that the small ship could handle rapid corrections to the shield system if necessary. But Daniel knew that predicting alien behavior was impossible. Late in the day, the unknown probe returned. This time it moved faster, approaching a cluster of shield nodes. Energy readings spiked. Victor and the analyst shouted instructions. Daniel activated the small ship, hovering in the hangar as if preparing for launch. Every panel glowed green, systems ready for immediate action. Victor spoke through the communication link. "Are you ready?" Daniel nodded, checking instruments one last time. "I'm ready. We can handle this." The small spacecraft lifted, guided manually by Daniel. The hum of engines filled the hangar. Sparks from testing circuits ran across the floor, but the ship remained stable. Victor monitored every sensor, ensuring that the energy flows remained within safe limits. As Daniel moved toward the external launch bay, the probe emitted a strong pulse. The shield nodes fluctuated violently. Daniel adjusted the ship's control system, redirecting power to stabilize the affected nodes. Each correction required precise timing. One miscalculation could overload the shield, causing cascading failures in the orbital network. Victor watched, heart pounding. The man he had fired days ago was now steering the city's defenses with calm precision. Daniel's daughter's hologram appeared, her faint smile visible even through the fluctuating signal. "Papa, are you safe?" she asked. "I am," Daniel replied. "Stay strong. I'll return soon." The probe pulsed again, sending waves of energy toward the shield. Daniel guided the small ship into the path of the surge, using it to channel excess power safely into the stabilizers. Sparks flew from the engines as they absorbed the overload. Victor could see the strain on Daniel's face, yet he remained focused, calculating each movement with skill. Minutes passed like hours. The shield's network trembled under the probe's tests, but Daniel's interventions held it steady. Analysts whispered, awed at the precision of his actions. The probe moved closer, scanning, testing, probing. It seemed intelligent, almost aware of Daniel's interventions. Victor realized that this was more than a test of machinery. It was a test of human courage and ingenuity. Daniel had passed it already, showing skill, patience, and care beyond any automated system. Finally, the probe emitted a strong pulse, then moved away, retreating into deep orbit. The shield stabilized. Energy readings returned to normal. Daniel lowered the small ship back into the hangar. Sweat dripped from his forehead, but his eyes were calm, determined. Victor approached him, feeling a deep respect. "You have done the impossible again. Not for recognition, not for reward, but for what is right. I misjudged you." Daniel nodded. "I only did what had to be done. There was no other choice." Victor looked at the small spacecraft, realizing it was more than a machine. It was hope and courage, built with hands that refused to give up. Daniel had risked everything for a child he loved, and in doing so, he had saved millions. Victor returned to his office later that evening, reflecting on the events. Leadership was not about power or rules. It was about seeing the strength in others and trusting them to act when it mattered most. Daniel had taught him that lesson, and it was one Victor would never forget. Outside, the city glimmered in the night. The orbital stations hummed safely, and the unknown probe had vanished. But both men knew that space was vast, unpredictable, and dangerous. And when the next challenge came, humanity would need courage, intelligence, and the determination to protect those they loved. Days passed after the probe had retreated, yet the tension remained. Victor Hale monitored the city from his office at Orion Defense Systems, reviewing shield performance data and satellite communications. Analysts reported minor anomalies, but nothing dangerous. Still, Victor could not relax. The probe had tested Earth's defenses, and he knew it could return. Daniel Reed worked tirelessly in Hangar 3. The small spacecraft was now fully operational. Every circuit, every engine, every navigation system had been double-checked. He ran simulations repeatedly, preparing for any scenario. His daughter's hologram was visible on a nearby monitor, her health slowly improving thanks to the earlier stabilization of the shield and emergency medical care. Victor walked into the hangar, observing Daniel's focus. The man moved with calm determination, precise and methodical. Victor realized that Daniel's skill extended beyond engineering. His mind anticipated problems, calculated solutions, and adjusted with lightning speed. This was more than talent. It was ingenuity born of necessity and love. An alert flashed on Victor's wrist console. Another unidentified object had appeared in high orbit. Analysts scrambled, reporting erratic energy readings and unusual movement patterns. Victor's heart sank. This probe seemed more aggressive, more intelligent. He knew that the city's shield could withstand minor fluctuations, but sustained interference could be catastrophic. "Daniel," Victor called, "the object has returned. It is testing us again. We may need to act fast." Daniel nodded, examining the monitors. "I expected this. The probe is learning from our responses. We must be ready for manual intervention." Victor realized that Daniel was right. The probe was intelligent, adapting to the shield's reactions. Standard protocols might fail. Only Daniel's skill and the small ship could provide the necessary control. He approached Daniel's workstation. "You'll need to pilot the ship closer to the shield nodes, correct?"
"Yes," Daniel replied.
"The automated systems cannot adjust quickly enough for the probe's pulses. I have to guide the corrections manually." Victor felt a mix of fear and admiration. The man he had fired for being late was now the only person capable of keeping Earth's defenses stable. Hours passed as they prepared the ship. Daniel ran final diagnostics, ensuring fuel efficiency, engine calibration, and energy conduits were all optimal. The small spacecraft glowed under the hangar lights, ready for immediate launch. Outside, the city continued its daily rhythm, unaware of the danger above. Orbital stations hummed safely, their crews monitoring routine traffic. Analysts tracked the probe's movements, noting patterns but failing to predict its next actions. Victor spoke to the control team. "We need constant monitoring. Daniel will pilot the ship manually. Keep all communications lines open. Every second counts." Daniel climbed into the cockpit, strapping himself in securely. The hum of the engines filled the hangar as systems powered up. He checked each display, ensuring navigation and energy redistribution controls were active. His eyes flicked to his daughter's hologram. "I will be back soon. Stay strong." Victor activated the live monitoring feed. "I am with you. You will not be alone." The ship lifted slowly, hovering over the hangar floor. Sparks from engine tests danced across the metal plates as the spacecraft gained stability. Daniel guided it toward the external launch bay, careful not to collide with structural supports. Outside, the probe's energy pulses increased, reacting to his movements. Daniel adjusted the ship's position. "The shield nodes are fluctuating. I will direct the energy manually." Victor's fingers flew over the console, rerouting energy flows, monitoring structural integrity, and tracking the probe's movement. Analysts shouted instructions, but Daniel's calm voice coordinated all actions. The probe pulsed again, stronger than before. The shield trembled under the interference. Daniel guided the ship through the pulse, redirecting energy to stabilize the nodes. Sparks flew from the engines as the ship absorbed and redistributed the surges. Every maneuver required perfect timing. One error could trigger a cascading failure. Victor watched, heart pounding. The man he had dismissed was now saving the city with precise, controlled actions. Each adjustment stabilized the shield further. Daniel anticipated the probe's pulses, maneuvering in real time, keeping the system balanced. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The probe seemed almost aware of his interventions, changing pulse patterns in response. But Daniel remained focused, calculating every movement, every energy flow, and every correction. Victor realized that no machine could match the adaptability and courage of a human with a purpose. Finally, the probe emitted a final strong pulse, then retreated into deep orbit. The shield stabilized. Energy readings normalized. The city and orbital stations were safe once more. Daniel powered down the small spacecraft and climbed out, exhaustion visible but pride in his eyes. Victor approached him, feeling respect, humility, and gratitude. You have done the impossible again. Not for glory, not for recognition, but because it was right. I misjudged you. Daniel shook his head. I did what I had to do. There was no other choice. Victor looked at the small ship, now silent and resting, realizing it represented more than engineering. It embodied hope, courage, and love. Daniel had risked everything for his daughter and, in doing so, had saved millions. Victor returned to his office later, reflecting on the events. Leadership was not about control or rules. It was about seeing strength in others, trusting them to act when it mattered most, and supporting courage when it emerged. Daniel had shown him the true meaning of responsibility. Outside, the city glittered under the evening sky. Orbital stations remained secure. The probe had vanished, leaving a silent reminder that the galaxy was full of challenges. Victor and Daniel knew this was only the beginning, and when the next test arrived, humanity would rely on courage, intelligence, and the unbreakable bond between a father and child. Victor Hale stared out of the large window of his office overlooking the city. The orbital stations gleamed in the distance, and the satellites above hummed quietly, all seemingly at peace. But Victor knew the galaxy was unpredictable. One wrong move could spell disaster. He had learned something essential from the man he had fired days ago. Daniel Reed had returned safely from his missions, having stabilized the shield and fended off the unknown probe. The small spacecraft rested in Hangar 3, a testament to human ingenuity, determination, and love. Daniel's daughter was finally receiving treatment at the advanced medical station, far beyond Earth, thanks to the intervention prompted by Daniel's actions. She was improving, slowly but steadily. Victor called a meeting with his top executives. The board members questioned why he had risked company assets for one employee, especially someone recently fired. Victor spoke calmly. This man saved millions of lives. He acted without hesitation, without reward, guided by courage and love. That is leadership and strength we should follow, not punish. Some board members frowned, but others nodded, recognizing the truth. The company had learned a lesson that could not be taught through rules or reports. Human determination was more powerful than any algorithm or policy. In Hangar 3, Daniel and his small ship were inspected by engineers, each taking notes, learning from his improvisation, careful calculations, and the methods he had used to stabilize the shield. Daniel did not complain about being examined. He knew his work could save lives in the future, not just today. Each adjustment, each reinforced panel, each system tested under the probe's interference became part of the company's new standard procedures. Victor approached Daniel quietly. I misjudged you, he admitted. I focused on lateness and rules, not on character, determination, or what drives people to act for what is right. Daniel nodded. I understand, rules are important, but sometimes they cannot guide you when lives are at stake. Victor smiled faintly. From now on, you lead a new research division. Your task is to develop defensive and humanitarian technologies. You decide how teams operate, and rules are secondary to results. This is your project, your responsibility. Daniel's eyes widened slightly. I thank you. I will not fail. Outside the hangar, engineers worked with renewed energy. They understood that intelligence, courage, and human ingenuity were the most valuable assets. Victor's leadership had changed, and the company culture shifted toward valuing initiative, problem-solving, and care above strict compliance. In the weeks that followed, Daniel and his team improved the shield systems, integrating lessons learned from the probe's interference. The small spacecraft became a prototype for emergency response missions. It could travel quickly to unstable nodes, perform manual overrides, and even transport critical supplies to orbital stations. Victor observed from above, reflecting on the events. Leadership was not about enforcing rules or asserting power. It was about recognizing talent, nurturing courage, and trusting individuals to act when circumstances demanded it. Daniel Reed had taught him that lesson, a lesson written not in reports, but in action, risk, and sacrifice. News of Daniel's heroics spread slowly at first, then widely. The public praised the father who saved millions. Governments acknowledged the importance of individual initiative in crises. Policies changed, ensuring that employees were heard, their efforts recognized, and their motivations understood before judgment was passed. Daniel visited his daughter frequently, coordinating her care from Earth and preparing for future missions. The bond between them strengthened, reinforcing his determination to continue developing technologies that could protect humanity and aid those in need. Every invention, every adjustment was guided by love, empathy, and knowledge. Victor, once rigid and rule-bound, now led with wisdom tempered by humility. He had witnessed courage and ingenuity firsthand. He understood that humanity's survival in the galaxy depended not just on technology, but on the people behind it, their choices, their sacrifices, and their care for others. In the final moments of that transformative period, Victor and Daniel stood together in Hangar 3. The small spacecraft gleamed under the lights, ready for the next mission. Victor nodded to Daniel. "You have shown the true strength of humanity. Not in titles or rules, but in courage, sacrifice, and love." Daniel smiled faintly, tired but resolute. "That is all any of us can do." Outside, the city thrived. The orbital stations remained secure, and the unknown probe had vanished, leaving Earth intact. Yet Victor and Daniel knew that the galaxy was vast and unpredictable. Challenges would return, and each would require intelligence, courage, and the willingness to act for what is right. The night settled over the city,